Hi, I'm Chad from Chad DIY. In today's video, we are testing out this conveyor belt system for the F1 Ultra. So let's get started. Now, if you aren't familiar with this conveyor belt system, the hype on it is you can take just kind of a regular item that's kind of like a wood token. You can put it in the machine, you get your settings all squared up and whatever. And once you have that saved, you are able to just add all these other tokens right behind it. And in theory, the conveyor belt system is just going to keep sliding by. It's going to be able to kind of smart detect each token, and it's going to engrave on it perfectly. So the name of the game, I think, is going to be accuracy. Just how accurate is this conveyor belt system? Because if it's not, it's kind of pointless trying to do it, because this is all about saving time, where you can set up your settings one time and just load as many things as you want after that, and it's going to be perfect every time. So really excited to try this out today and just kind of see exactly how accurate this machine is. Now, the setup of this machine is really a breeze. You just have a handful of little screws that kind of attach to the front. There's a little mounting plate that you can put on there, attach the actual conveyor belt, and then there's just a cable basically going from the conveyor belt into this second to the top slot. There's a computer slot, and then I believe it almost kind of looks like a little squirrely thing with the one on there. Plug that in, and that's really all there is to setting up the conveyor belt. So super easy on and off for the system. All right, so really super easy to get that conveyor belt system on. Now we're gonna kind of jump over the software side of things. First of all, I do have this small air purifier or air fume extractor set up for this thing. It's kind of designed for the bigger one, but kind of rigged that up. So just for test purposes here on my workbench, normally I have it on my workstation, but just for filming, it works out better that way. So yeah, we're gonna set things up in the software, get it all dialed in. And I think we're going to try what I think is going to be the easiest example first, is just those a little larger wooden tokens, if you will. And we'll kind of just see how everything batches out, how the system recognizes it, and really excited to see how it turns out. So let's get started on that. All right, now we're over on the software side of things. Now we kind of have a picture of the conveyor belt. That's the wooden token there. So kind of just to start off, so this is the material we're using is 3mm basswood. So what's great about xTool is you can head over to the material settings, mt.xtool.com is what I'm at right now. But they have all the machines you might be using. So what we're using right now is the F1 Ultra, so click on that. And now what you're going to have is you're going to have all these different types of materials that you're able to cut or engrave or whatever. So it really makes the guesswork of what settings to use, takes the guesswork out of it, I guess. So we're using 3mm basswood, there we go. Plywood. And all right, so now we can kind of look at F1 Ultra's machine. We're going to use that 20-watt blue light laser on it. We're going to use a conveyor, and we are engraving. So here we go. So it's got 70% power, 600 speed, kind of the more the details there, one pass, lines per centimeter, 100. So yeah, it really takes the guesswork out of what settings you should use. You can kind of see if you want different settings too, but they kind of have it highlighted what they recommend. So awesome on xTool for doing that. It makes it so much easier getting started on this process. So yeah, we have our little token there. Let's kind of add, let me see what we want to add here. Maybe we'll just add a shape. This is kind of just for testing purposes. Obviously, let's get a tree in there. All right, so we're gonna engrave. Whoops, I double click. So delete one of those. So we're gonna engrave this tree. We're gonna line it up on this token. Now let's actually refresh. I always like to get when we're starting to get a refresh image of actually what's on the conveyor belt. All right, there we go. So if you hit the control button and scroll on your mouse wheel, you can kind of zoom in and out on the picture. A little tip. And also another little tip is I get kind of close on with the mouse, and then I just use the arrow keys on the keyboard to fine tune it. So we're going to get that all lined up here, get it as best as we can. And that is looking pretty good, I think. And so now we have our settings. So we want to engrave. Users fine. I don't think that should matter because we know what settings we're going to use. Go to 600, and those are all fine. Now let's make sure we're on the conveyor belt. So we want to do conveyor belt or conveyor batch on this because we're going to be batching out things. All right, frame out your materials. So it's going to give you all these kind of warnings too. Batch fill may not necessarily be accurate for materials that are reflective. So that's good to know. And we are going to try, I think, some reflective materials later, but just to start that off. So we are going to, all right, there we go. So it's going to move or resize the bounding area. So the bounding area looks good. All right, it's fill there. All right, and now what I'm going to do is frame. And I'll check over on the machine here. All right, the framing looks good. So we're going to stop framing it here. And just for this first, I think for this first one, we're going to make that a little smaller just to make sure it's not going over anywhere, just in case we screw anything up here for the first go around. All right, let's try that. We'll frame that up now. All right, it looks good on the machine. So stop framing it, and then we're going to go to process here. And now I'm going to switch actually over off the software, and we'll get back on the camera on the machine, and I'll show you what it's actually doing on the machine rather than the software. All right, so we got it all set up here. I got my one, if hopefully you can see, there's that one token in the center. That's going to go first. And then if all goes well, it should batch out these, I don't know if there's, 6, 7 more on the end. So I'm going to jump over. I got the computer off screen. I'm going to hit that processing, and we're going to see how it goes. It's a little nerve-wracking here. I have tested this before, but just to, normally I like to frame each individual item before I engrave it, just so I don't, we're not ruining this belt or whatever. So putting a lot of trust in the system that it's going to work as planned. But yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking not framing each item first before you actually engrave it. So I'm going to hit this fume extractor, and we'll get her running. All right, so I have all my little tokens here. Test 1, I think, worked out great. They all seemed exactly where they need to be. Try and kind of look through them. I mean, one might be slight off to the left. It's kind of hard to tell with these things, and they're pretty small too. But overall accuracy worked really well. Now, one of them did get missed. It seemed like the belt would shift, and then it was a little too far over. It was a little too far over to the left at first, and then the belt shift, and then it was a little too far over to the right. So there might be a little hit and miss, but you could always just kind of keep, if it misses one, you could just put it right back and then probably catch it the next time. So overall, I think it did really well in these wooden tokens. Now, I was pretty hopeful because it does kind of really stand out compared to the black background. But our next test, we're going to do some arrows, so it's a little different shape. They're still going to be wood, and we'll see if that makes any bit of difference with the shape. So let's get that lined up. I won't bore you with the software part of it. We'll just kind of get lined up and we'll do the test run and see how it turns out. All right, I have my next test ready to go. I am wearing my laser safety glasses here because this doesn't go all the way down. It's just a good practice to do. So we'll turn on the Puma extractor again and we'll let it rip through. All right, so once again, accuracy was not an issue at all, even with the different shape with the arrow. So what I found is doing that first one and then having it in a nice little pod, a group of the next batch to go. Now, it does seem like you have to cancel this out once you're done with the group, or else it'll just keep going through that conveyor belt, probably searching for them. So a little tip on that. So now for our last test on the batching, we're going to do some business cards. Now this is the reflective surface, which it kind of warns you about. So we're going to see if that really affects things at all. So try that out next. All right, did the reflective little business cards here, and once again, no alignment issues. Everything seemed to be exactly the same on each card. Didn't have issues recognizing that reflective material at all. So overall, I think this batching process really works well. Now, as far as speed, if I was still doing maybe 4 business cards, I'd probably just do it the regular way without the conveyor belt, I guess. I don't know if it's really any faster when you do lower numbers. I think really when you start cranking out 20, 30, 40 of the same items, that's really where this conveyor belt is going to win. So you're going to have to kind of weigh what your plans are, what you're going to do with this system, and kind of decide, hey, do I really need that quantity that helps speed things up, or do I really just usually only make a few at a time? So only you can answer that question, but overall accuracy, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. The software seemed to kind of handle it. Now, I think it is, I believe it's cloud-based, which some people, they hear cloud-based, they, freak out about it, but you do have to be connected to the internet. I had to log into my account. As far as I know, it's processing, each time it slides on that conveyor belt, it processes that what it's seeing there. I think it does it on the computer, then sends it back. So something to be aware of, that you do need the internet connection to use that batching system. So for me, I'm not worried about these designs getting stolen or anything, but some people are concerned about that. So something to be aware of. Now, the last test we will do is just kind of a longer board. Now, to me, this main thing is going to be for the batching capability, but it can do kind of a longer material. Right now, I believe it's capped at 500 millimeters, is what I thought I saw. Maybe someday it'll be unlimited, so as long a board as you can get in the software, it'll just kind of keep cycling it through. But yeah, we'll test the board just to complete this conveyor belt test, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, so I have everything set up for my final test here, just kind of doing that board. We're just going to write home on it. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory in the software. You go conveyor belt large instead of conveyor belt batch. And what's kind of cool about this is I'll hit in the software here, but you can still frame it. I wasn't sure how the framing would work. But as you can see, it's moving along here, kind of framing out exactly where it's going to go. So I was kind of wondering how you can frame out a piece that sticks out on the end. And I don't know, it still can do it, and it kind of shows it where it's going to engrave. So and then it slides back to the start point. Now, setting up your board, you're going to want to use a tape measure to make sure it's kind of squared up there, so it's not going crooked one way or the other. And yeah, we'll try it out here and see how that does. All right, so we got our little sign, home sweet home. Now, I think I mentioned the 500 millimeter right now is the max that you can do in the software, which is kind of a bummer because I feel like you could get extensions for this conveyor belt. And if you could do like a 4-foot sign, I mean, how cool would that be? You could do like home or someone's last name, or I really feel like that would be a huge feature for this machine. Right now I have a few other xTool machines. The S1 has a conveyor system as well. To me, this conveyor system is, I don't know, works a lot nicer. Hooking it up is a breeze compared to the S1. So, and that's kind of what the thing was for the S1, is doing these big signs that you can kind of conveyor through. So to me, the width of the machine, you could still get a nice, for the width, you could still get a nice size, but the length being limited on that right now is kind of a bummer. So I'm sure it's just a software upgrade they could do if they choose that in the future, but I'm going to send a shout out to xTool to think about that at least. Maybe they have their reasons, but overall the function of it worked really well. I think a lot of people, for right now at least, they're looking at that batching feature for this conveyor belt. But if you have that batching feature and you can make 4-foot, 6-foot long signs, I mean, that'd be really cool as well. So hopefully in the future we'll get both. Now, if you have any questions on this conveyor belt, on this F1 Ultra, just anything in this video you see, please leave them in that comment section below. I try my best to get back to all those comments. If you're interested in this machine, purchasing it, I will provide, or the conveyor belt, provide those links below. They are affiliate links, so it really helps out the channel if you use those links. You're always getting the best price with those links, and oftentimes you can save $80 too with the coupon code I provide. So really encourage that as well. So as always, I'm Chad from Chad DIY, and we'll see you on the next one.